I'm not in charge of what goes on at the hospital. It's an honest question. I wish I had a better answer. But there's a lot here that needs to be worked out. You know, I think that we agree on a lot of things. We disagree on a handful of others. I disagree with the way that this came about. I did agree with the peaceful demonstration. I don't want to see the Hammonds sit in prison for the rest, for a longer sentence. I think it's a law that needs to be worked out through the appropriate channels. And I'm going to enforce the law while I'm here. And I'm going to do the best I can. I'm an imperfect human being. And I guess I have to ask God to help me with the rest.
Hi, my name is Katie Beatty. I have grown up in Burns. I graduated high school in Ukraine and have called Harney County home for nearly 30 years, in case anybody cares who I am and why I'm relevant. So, in the last 2 weeks, our little community of Harney County has seen more press, drama, and hatred than ever before. I have not publicly stated my opinion in regards to the current situation at the refuge. I have also refrained from social media. The only message that I have actively supported and stood behind is the initiative to bring the Hammonds home. Due to my disconnect from the social media platform, I have not become part of any secret or public groups that, in my opinion, were created specifically to slander members of our community under the facade of a disagreement with the Bundy agenda. I feel after being attacked and slandered that I probably should set the record straight. And I'm not a Bundy lover. I've never met a Bundy, and love's a pretty strong word for a stranger. I'm also not a self-proclaimed anti-government martyr. I do, however, love the Hammonds, and I want to see both of them come home. My question, though, is what happens when the media and the individuals at the refuge do leave? Who will be around to make sure that something productive comes from this? It won't be Fox or NBC or CNN, maybe Pete Santilli. I heard he's going to buy the radio. Are we going to go back to being the quiet little community where nobody questions Big Brother? As soon as the hourglass runs out for the folks at the refuge, we can just get back to our normal lives. I don't want to go back to normal. I want to see something, I want to see change, progress, results. I want to see Harney County's strong effort to bring Stephen and Dwight home. I want to see the land management issues addressed. I want to see the victims of the BLM held accountable for the damages to work together in harmony and collaboration to take care of the land here, and it can be done. I want to see Harney County band together as a community and support our neighbors in Malheur County, who are at risk of losing nearly a third of their county, so a shoe company on the west side of the state can make money on hiking boots. We've all stood shoulder to shoulder to save our theater, send our kids on numerous trips, save our sports programs, raise money to help locals pay medical bills, and the list just goes on. Why is it that now, when the entire nation is watching our every move, do we decide to tear each other down? We went to school together, our kids learn and play together, we attend the same community functions together. We broke bread, prayed, lost friends and family together. Our community has been through a hell of a lot worse than having a group of individuals take over the refuge. My family and I have been on the receiving end of the slander and hatred dealt out by several members of our Harney County community. The fact that my family and I have not openly stated our opinion has opened us up for abuse and the designation of an opinion by someone else. We've been called Bundy lovers and accused of catering to visitors in our community. We've been stalked, photographed, and slandered all in the same breath. And in regards to our county officials, I can respect the fact that you are all under an exorbitant amount of stress at the moment, but that gives you no right to disregard the concerns of your voters and citizens of this county. When the issue of slander on a Facebook group comprised of government employees, teachers, and I quote, rational, like-minded folk, was brought to your attention, we were told to just ignore everything because it's going to blow over. In the same breath, we were made very aware that we were to ignore the slander directed at us, but that we should focus on the hatred that is pointed at our county officials. When an elected official's feelings and opinions become more important than mine. I want to point out that I did notice the blatant disregard for citizens' concern and what, in my opinion, felt like a selfish ploy to bring more attention to a pity party for their family. You say you're listening to the community, but it sure feels like you aren't hearing what's being said. And it doesn't matter what side of the fence you stand on, but the way you compose yourself during this time will follow you forever. Our community needs to focus on changing and healing. Neither will be accomplished if the malice that is at the heart of the great Harney County divide is not addressed. Choose wisely the way you express your opinion, as doing so in a manner that is hurtful, slanderous, or just plain nasty will be your burden to carry after the cameras leave.
Sheriff Ward, I've heard you continually say that you're not in charge of the investigation, correct? Jason Ward, raised here my whole life. You've continually said that you're not in charge of the investigation, correct? Okay, furthermore, anyway, you can answer that after I'm done. We have the FBI on video saying they're not in charge, they're here to aid you in what you are doing.
I talk to them every day.
So one of you guys are lying to the public. I want to know which one's lying and why. And being the supreme law of the land per the Constitution, no matter how you guys want to misconstrue it, it's in black and white, it's easy to read. If you want the community to heal, which you can see right now, it's very divided. Everybody hopes for change. Everybody wants change. Everybody wants this to end peacefully. But until you guys can come up with some plan of action to embrace everybody here that you will take steps for change, I would rather see these guys stay.
My name is Wayne Bachman. I have lived out of Princeton for almost 20 years. If you didn't like the last two speeches, you won't like mine. I was unjustly, unlawfully jailed in your jail, Sheriff. It was before you came there as a sheriff, but nevertheless, it was there in your jail where I was unjustly, unlawfully jailed in your jail and had my jaw broke by a violent bisexual pervert because I refused to give him sex. Why, and for Grasky, I want to know why Barb Kennedy told me about you putting her under duress to change her property lines. We need some accountability. We need honest people in government, not a bunch of damn crooks.
Let me ask something. Let me remind you. We can keep throwing hate back and forth all night long. This is one great place. And these are great people here. We need to move this on.
Coward! Answer the people's questions. Time to be lied to.
I'm going to let him answer the question, okay? But I'm going to ask you, work towards solutions. We can complain all night long, but I'm going to ask you to work towards solutions.
I don't know who you spoke to from the FBI, but I'm going to tell you I'm not in charge of the investigation out at the refuge.
It's your county, you're in charge! They say you're in charge.
Thank you.
Listen, we've asked this once, please. Let's stay civil here.
Because we say
Guys,
something you don't care to hear.
Listen, we got to keep this at a level, where we all are having a civil conversation here. I want to pull this back together. The young lady at the top is exactly right. Let's pull this place back together.
My name is
Vanessa Leathers King. I've spoken a lot. I'm generally not crying when I do it. I have to applaud the courage of Rod Bennett here to tell me to my face that I've never been very bright after he was my teacher in high school. That was awesome. Also, do not presume to know where I stand either. I had a discussion earlier with Steve Grasty, and I told him that I am not necessarily a Bundy supporter. I understand the frustrations that got them there. Quit trying to label me when you don't even know me, you have never spoken to me, and you have no idea where I stand. You can read everything I've posted on Facebook. You can watch the damn news. Sorry for cursing, I should not have done that. But I have been advocating for our town. I have been trying to fight the wrongs that were done that made this situation happen in the first place. I am working on that with other people who feel the same way, including Steve Grasty. I did protest yesterday. I did stand up because I wanted my voice to be heard. I wanted other people's voices to be heard. And I think we deserve a response when we ask a question from our local officials. And I got that today. That happened. But things like putting each other down, especially your former students, is not okay.
I told Vanessa that I was wrong. In a moment of anger, I said something that I should not have. And that is a perfect example of what is going on in this community. Over the last 2 months, Hammond Bundy and his tribe have brought a lot of anguish to this community.
It's awakening.
It may be awakening. It may be something that needs to be discussed, but it needs to be discussed through the proper channels. It also needs to be discussed through the community as a group, not as Bundy lovers, anti-Bundy lovers, or anything else. It needs to be discussed as the community.
Yeah, my name's Eddie Brown, and if anybody wants to know where I live, I'm the guy with the flag upside down out on Highway 20, because that's a sign of distress and distress. And we all in it. We have some people come from out of state. Okay, Mr. Bundy, I agree with you 100%. We have way too much government. But in the same hand, get the hell out of my yard. Are you happy if you give this to a community? Stand up and answer. I'm asking you a question.
My name is Tom Sharp, and my wife and I, we own range property here in Harney County for about 17 years, and we've been full-time residents for the last 9 years here. And I want to offer a plan of action that really hasn't been brought up, but I think it exists here. I'm going to start a little silly analogy here. Harney County has an elephant in its house, and we need to decide whether to invite it up onto our beds or turn it out into the corral. The decisions we make are going to define the destiny of this community. For the last 3 weeks, Harney County has heard some interesting ideas from a variety of sometimes persuasive personalities that have come into our community. Some of these ideas might deserve additional examination. But some ideas appear to be very bad and almost insulting to our intelligence. For example, the refuge occupiers just yesterday came to the Crystal Crane Hot Springs and lectured our local ranchers to stop paying their BLM grazing fees and to tear up their grazing permits. Such advice is terribly destructive. It would impact our livelihood. It would destroy our cattle industry here in this country. For the last 3 weeks, Harney County has been gripped by a paralysis of disruption and dysfunction. Our government offices have been closed. We've lost work productivity. People have felt fearful and intimidated. Our personal relationships have been damaged. Outside groups of uncertain intent have arrived. Whatever can possibly be said has probably already been said to a national media presence. People are getting tired and stressed, and the daily economic and monetary cost of this occupation continue to increase. Harney County is a community that needs to work. We need to continue to work together, and we need to be able to work with our government agencies. The ability to do that has been disrupted, stopped, and compromised. It's time for many to go home, and it's time to begin healing and restoration of our good community. To begin this, Harney County needs to first restore law and order within our community. And we need to restore a civil process within the law to resolve our disagreements. I'm going to borrow a phrase from one of our presidential candidates, Donald Trump. He's probably the most colorful one out there. Donald Trump has said, "We can't afford to be so nice, folks." I'm going to say that again. We cannot afford to be so nice, folks. And while we greatly appreciate that law enforcement up to this point has avoided anyone from getting hurt, there are other damaging effects that deserve consideration. We need to recognize what's really going on down at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. For 3 weeks now, it has been an active crime scene, and it needs to be handled as such. We need to begin isolating and containing the occupiers. We need to prevent the transportation and resupply in and out of the refuge. We need to make the scene less comfortable by disconnecting the electrical, internet, telephone services that our occupiers are enjoying. So in conclusion, and this is the point, I call upon our elected officials, our law enforcement, our responsible federal agencies, such as the FBI and the Department of Justice, to stop being so nice and to start taking the necessary actions to end this standoff, to return the refuge to the public, and to enable the restoration and healing within our community.
I'd like to address you, Tom Sharp, about the elephant in this room. The elephant in this room, I'm Erin Maupin, and I've spoke at every single one of these meetings. And the elephant in this room is an overreaching federal government that has sent Dwight and Stephen Hammonds back to prison for a second time. The second time. These people have stood up here. There's representatives in Washington, representatives in Oregon. They all think it's unjust. And that is the elephant in this room. And instead of talking about who needs to go home, we need to start talking about who needs to come home. Who needs to come home? For the second time. And I'm sorry, I'm getting out mad, but I am sick of this. I am sick of this. Do you realize how selfish we are? Every single one of us, me included. This has been heck on me. I haven't enjoyed this. But what about Susie Hammond? What about Dwight and Stephen Hammond, who are in a prison cell? Has anybody thought about what they're going through? And we're talking about our rights being violated. Think about their rights. Susie was on Lou Dobbs last night. Lou Dobbs asked, has any one of your representatives called you to talk to you? I want to ask you three gentlemen right there, have any one of you called Susie Hammond since her husband and her son have been sent back to prison, or Linda Hammond, whose family is torn apart? Have any one of you called them?
Sorry? My name is Isabel, and I live here in Hammonds. I would like just to clarify to everybody that mandatory minimum sentencing was not invented for the Hammonds a few years ago. It has been around for 20 years, and it was the Republicans who put them in place. For 20 years, mostly inner city, poor, minority men have been unjustly jailed for endless sentences. For 20 years, the Democrats have been trying to get rid of mandatory sentencing. So tell Greg Walden to go across the aisle and talk to his Democratic peers who will help him get rid of minimum mandatory sentencing, because they are unfair and they are wrong, but they were not invented for the Hammonds. And the Hammonds committed a crime, and they got the sentence that was appropriate for that crime. And it is very sad, but it is sad for everybody in America who has an unfair sentence, not just the Hammonds, not just because they are your neighbors and you know them. And you need to start realizing that the rest of the world, especially the rest of the United States, people work hard, even if they're environmentalists, even if they're Democrats, even if they're liberals, even if they love their national parks and yes, their national monuments, even they get up in the morning, work hard, take care of their children, raise their children, and serve their country. And so instead of invading our wildlife refuge and then daring to come here in our public school while our children are practicing their sports, you should just go home and I hope somebody catches you on the way and you go to jail where you deserve to be.
Wrestling.
I'm Linda Looney. I've lived here for 65 years. I was raised on a ranch here. I've known Steve, I know Dave, I know most of the people up there. I'm going to tell you something. There's not two people that love Harney County more than Dave Ward and Steve Grassley. And I can guarantee that. And what I want to say is, when this all started, we had a prayer vigil. There was 5 different pastors that Sunday at that prayer vigil. Do you know there were 2 law enforcement people there, but there wasn't anybody from any of you guys there. Do you know who we prayed for first? For safety, for knowledge, for discernment, was you and everybody that's at that refuge. That's who we prayed for, was your guys' safety. That the right thing would be done. We appreciate that you have brought some things to light, but it's gotten out of order. You know, we have voices, we have feet, we can take care of it. You've brought this to our minds, to bring it up to do something about it, thank you, I guess, But I can't thank you for the disruption to our county, to my home, to people who are stressed out. And it's not any one person's fault that people are stressed out. It's not the 3%ers. It's not the Patriots. It's not Amon Bundy and your bunch. It's not the FBI. It's not the police. It's stress because this is our home. We love it or we wouldn't be here. And we just want you to give it back to us. Let us take control now. Everybody runs these guys down and you're starting to pick bad things that they may have done or bad things that somebody else has done. Was that the point in coming here in the first place? No, it wasn't. It was to bring up some things that were not going right with the government, okay? Not to pick on individuals and to blackball everybody and to fight with everybody. We're all Americans. We're all God's children. And I just ask that if anybody has a problem with what these people are doing, run for office.
My name is Roy Swanky, and I've lived in Harney County for 25 years. As Liz Appleton said, and as Aaron Maupin said, the original objectives of everything here was bring the Hammonds home. And after the rally, the other organizers and stuff got together down at the fairgrounds, and the words they said was the Bundys hijacked the rally. Well, that's true, but that's not all of it. The Bundys hijacked the Hammonds. Right now, the Hammonds seems right now that the Hammonds is like for a lot of people, is like a second or third objective. I mean, we've got all this talk about management or ownership of federal lands. Well, that's been around for over 100 years. And it isn't going to get changed here in this county, and it isn't going to get changed in the next week or two or whatever. We've got freedom of speech objectives and stuff. Well, Hammond, again, they seem to be taking precedence over bringing the Hammonds home. Well, I got thinking the other night, and this is something Steve said. As long as you guys are holding the refuge hostage down there, the Hammonds will stay in jail. They will not come home because they don't negotiate that type of situation. If they give in to you guys, then the next person that gets sentenced or whatever, there's a bunch of friends take over the other refuge or some other place. So they will never give in as long as you are holding that down. I've talked many times, I shouldn't say many times, but I've said several times that we need to sign a petition to bring the Hammond or get us sentences commuted or run out of the other word that clemency. Yes, thank you. I have another idea on that there. You know, there's probably around 100,000, I've heard people support the petition to Clements or whatever, the Hammonds. I think we need to, as a community, I'll start another petition. A petition that is limited to either Harney County citizens or maybe I was going to say take a 100-mile radius around the Hammonds Ranch and get everybody that's within that could vote, get them all, them would be the only ones that could sign the petition. Then, because I think most of the people in that radius supports bringing the Hammonds home. And even though there may only be 6,000 or 7,000 people, what you do is then you look at how many signs it, and you come up with a percentage. And then you do the same thing around Washington, D.C. Well, let me go back. I think you'd have a high percentage, 80, 90%. Then I was going to say you take the same radius around Washington, D.C. and figure out the population there, and I would guess, you're going to talk 30 million or 50 million, and then you can say, take it to the president and say, down here 90% of the people support bringing the Hammonds home. If you want to do that around Washington, D.C., you'd have to have millions of people sign a petition. And I don't see millions of people signing the petition that's going on now. Even if you have 100,000, even if you had 1 million people sign the present petition, that would be 1/3% of the population of the United States. So anyway, I'm just making that a suggestion of something else we might be able to do.
Am I invisible?
I'm Tom Wallace, and I live here in Harney County. I live in 640 square feet down on East Street next to the river in what used to be called Whiskey Flats. I love it there. It's a dead-end road. My animals don't get hit. And I don't. My wife, bless her heart, has taught me something over and over again. That there's not all that much wrong with the United States of America except the blame game. We're really quick to lay blame on somebody else for something, whether it's Steve in office or the sheriff whose hands are tied, or the federal government, as the man just explained, whose hands are tied with the Hammonds because the United States, the federal government, does not negotiate with what they consider terrorism. And I don't mean anything bad about that, Mr. Bundy. I appreciate you coming. Would really like you to go home. But the blame game is what is wrong with this society. It isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about how can we fix it in the proper fashion. And that's all I have to say.